Hey, I'm Jim Sear.
And I'm Jocelyn Youat.
And you're listening to the Avoiding Chores podcast,
where we talk about, whatever feels like the right thing to talk about.
That's right, Jocelyn. And you know what? Keith kind of filled in for you at last podcast. We talked about Stephen King movies. And you know what? Let's continue on the topic of scary movies. And you brought up a great point before we started recording tonight's episode.
Yeah, it's, you and I are, I used to be in my 40s, but we're far removed from our teens, and it seems like horror movies are something you watch when you're in your teens, and by the time you're 21, 22, 23, and you have a job and you have other things, you don't watch horror movies anymore, and I don't know why.
You know what? You bring up an excellent point. You asked me, when was the last time I watched a horror movie? And I'm like, I can't honestly remember when it was the last time. Now, it was pretty good horror movie, and horror movies was my big thing. In my teens, I watched pretty much every horror movie that was in at the video rental store, the convenience store. I rented all of them. I watched all of them. Now, mind you, I had to watch horror movies in the daytime because our house was kind of spooky at night. It was creaking and cracking, and we lived on a farm, so you see stuff move in the window, and that would freak you out. But in the daylight, no problem. So, but yeah, I haven't seen a good horror movie in, I want to say 5 years, 6 years, maybe.
It's way more than that for me. And honestly, I asked you the question. You haven't seen one in a while, and do you want to see one? And I don't.
You know what? The odd times that I have permission to use the Netflix on the big TV, and it's at night, and I'm going through the categories on Netflix, I want to watch something, I go on the horror section, and I start browsing, and I'm like, yeah, there's really nothing I want to start playing with. There's no interest. And I know that it's something that used to give me some joy in watching. I did enjoy a nice horror movie. But geez, you know what? I just couldn't. For example, one of my best favorite horror movies is Sam Raimi's The Evil Dead movie.
I haven't seen that.
Evil Dead 2, or kind of like the remake from the first one. By far, one of my favorite movies. I still have the limited DVD with the fake Book of the Dead kind of cover for the DVD stuff. It's fantastic. Love it. I watched that. I don't know. They remade that a couple of years ago, and I have zero interest watching it.
Well, and for me, it goes beyond having no interest. I'm not that keen on getting scared out of my wits and not being able to sleep. And yeah, call me wuss. I don't know, man.
I don't know.
It's not something I want to be doing, honestly. But you're talking about a remake. I don't know if you saw this. It was in the news in the past week. Jamie Lee Curtis is going to reprise her role in the Halloween movie series, 40 years after she made her debut in that original movie.
And that's another movie that I got. Yeah. And I bought the DVD, I guess, when it was, 20-year anniversary, whatever. And I watched it, enjoyed it. Did I watch the second one? No. But I did watch the third one first when I was a teen, Halloween 3, which has nothing to do with the Jamie Lee Curtis Halloween story.
Right.
That one freaked me out when I was watching that as a kid. And ironically, I watched that on our old Canadian pay TV system, which was what? Not First Choice? No.
Oh yeah, First Choice. I guess. Yeah.
Was it First Choice?
Yeah, I guess.
Because we didn't have HBO back then.
No, of course not. No.
Some other distribution thing, whatever. Anyway, so but I tell you, a great story. I remember watching Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds.
Oh God, yeah, for sure.
I watched that on the Sunday afternoon at 2:00 in January. In the deepest, coldest days in northern New Brunswick in Canada. And the house was just cracking, right? And wind. And it was in the afternoon. Remember I said I used to watch it in the afternoon. Anyway, The Birds, early in my Alfred Hitchcock watching career, freaked me out. I had to go. One of the few movies I had to go for a walk to calm down.
Hey, I was. It's funny because I was going to ask you. What are the movies that you remember freaking you out? And obviously, I think the Exorcist for guys, or not guys, but people of our generation. I think it freaked out a lot of people. But I remember one called The Omen. And
yes,
oh my God, I still remember. I think it was whatever it was, a vampire face coming up to a window in that movie. And sometimes, if I'm up at night and the windows are dark and, I haven't closed the curtains, I still have flashbacks to that. And I must have seen this when I was 13 or 14 years old. That's a long time ago.
And this is why I have trouble sleeping in the woods, camping and stuff, because all these horror movies have built up every little sound, every little squirrel, every little leaf that falls down. I'm thinking, there's that ghost face vampire from The Omen coming to get me. And sure enough, you know what happened? We went out, we did some family camping this year, right? Brought everybody out, and I had a good sleep, but of course, the only time that this happened, I had a dream. I had a dream that a bear was coming through the tent and chewing my leg. And I'm like, of all the times, why is this? I haven't watched any horror movies. I wasn't thinking about bears. Why is this going on? I have no idea. I blame, not Sam Raimi. I blame, I don't know, some Stephen King stuff.
Yeah, maybe, for sure.
I don't know. That'd be the kind of stuff that would be maybe Cujo or something like that.
Hey, listen, this just kind of reminded me, your story of noises in the woods. I think that we all, and you probably, we haven't spoken about this, but you probably have seen this. The last horror movie you saw and that I saw is probably The Blair Witch Project.
In the theater, yes.
Oh, you saw it in the theater, too.
Saw it in the theater, and that is the last horror movie I saw in the theater.
Because that one was more than a horror movie. It was kind of, it was the thing to do to watch that movie because it was so different in the way it was shot and all that. I won't go into the cinematography of the whole thing, but it was almost like an event that it was a must-see, regardless of the fact that it was a horror flick.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. And you hear stories of people just getting motion sickness, and it was the point of view kind of camera thing, and it was a big cultural thing. You had to go watch it, and I forget who I went with because I didn't go alone when I went to see it, but it was just one of those things. And did I watch it afterwards on the TV? I may have bought the DVD afterwards.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I guess, I guess there's been some, like movies like The Sixth Sense. Not a horror movie per se, but certainly a scary movie in some way, right? I loved that movie when it came out. Actually watched it twice in a row because you get the punchline at the end.
Oh yeah, the twist was actually worth it. It was actually worth because otherwise it was actually a pretty good movie.
It was, yeah.
There's something going on, and you're not really paying. If you weren't really paying attention, you're like, oh, and then you get the twist, and then that just knocks you out and stuff. Which is hilarious.
Pretty cool. I think it was well worth it. If you haven't seen it, what are you waiting for?
Exactly. So I guess you know what, we're going to wrap it up because I haven't watched anything. I don't know what's coming out. We talked about it, and you know what? I did go to the bookstore to see how thick that paperback book is. I might read the paperback, but you know what? I got nothing going on here for movies. How about you, Jocelyn? You got as we wrap up here.
That's
anything?
It. I think horror movies are my horror movie watching career was done long ago.
Fantastic. All right, folks, make sure you give us a rating here on iTunes or whatever you use to listen to your podcast. on Apple, Stitcher, and all that stuff. Love to hear what you think about this episode. You can also go online and check us out on our website, avoidingchores.com. You can also find us on Facebook and on Twitter. Just search for Avoiding Chores.